Man, humans, all of us, by thinking, can bring into his experience whatever he desires, if he thinks correctly, and becomes a living embodiment of his thoughts. This is not done by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. What a bold and exciting statement from Ernest Holmes. And it's a wonderful way to introduce our theme for this month, which is, what is the science of mind? What is this thing, the science of mind? Has anybody else ever been asked that? What is it you guys study at that church you go to? But yeah, I've heard that. We are beginning the year, as many of our Centers for Spiritual Living do, with a look at the foundational or core ideas that we teach in our textbook, The Science of Mind. The first 4 chapters or books of this document that Dr. Holmes wrote are sort of separate and carved out from the rest of the textbook. And there's 4 of them, and he talks about those, and each year in our centers we break those down in January and go through those just to sort of give us a new perspective of the basics of the teaching, and it's a refresher, so to speak. So we're doing that this year, and we are starting out with the first one, which is the thing itself. Can you imagine his publishers in 1938, when he came in and said, here's my book, I want to publish it, and they looked at the first of it and it said The Thing Itself, and they're like, that's an interesting title, right? What are you talking about in that title? Oh, I'm describing God. Oh, really? So you've got a book this big? Oh, no, that's only about 12 pages that I'm describing God in. Yeah. So it's a fascinating story, or not story, but writing the way that he's done it. So he tells us in this chapter, the thing itself is the presence of God. It is the presence of God. We don't believe that God is something that's outside of ourselves. We don't teach that here. We are created of the one universal substance, which is God, and it is in, through, and as all, including us. It is in, through, and as all. We've heard that, haven't we? And it's a core idea. God is all there is. Many of us, when we first began to learn affirmative mind, spiritual mind treatment, prayers, we learned that first statement, God is all there is. God is all there is. And that's the unity of all life and all of nature. And since we live in this universal wholeness, much like the ocean and the waves don't take away from the ocean, do they? There are bigger waves and smaller waves. They're just different. But it doesn't diminish the ocean itself. And that's the same with us. We're all part of this wholeness that is God. And we're like those individualized waves, but we're still part of that wholeness of the divine, not diminishing it in any way. And I think this is what Holmes is trying to tell us and help us understand in this quote that we used this morning. Unfortunately, I think many people get stuck in that very first part by thinking we can bring into our experience anything we desire. And we stop there. Remember the movie The Secret? They had a tendency to stop a little short there, didn't they? And that one. But it is the other pieces of that, those instructions, that really are the keys to implementing this teaching in our lives. Become the living embodiment, knowing the truth. I was visiting, as I said, with Lori this week, and we were talking about spiritual principles and the creative process. And our examples in our teaching is, of course, the seed, the soil, and the plant, and the manifestation process, the co-creation process that we use. And she was showing me a piece of her beautiful artwork, a flower, a floral that she had done. And we were talking about that as the plant that was manifested after planting the seed and so forth in the law. And it struck me in that conversation with her that we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on the wrong thing. We talk a lot about let's plant the seeds. We did that last week, didn't we? We cleared the field with our burning bowl. We sat our new intentions. We planted those seeds. And then sometimes we want to get caught up in the law and help it along, don't we? Yeah, we want to help it along. We want to strategically plan it. We want to tell it what to do. We want to yin instead of yang and all that stuff. But really what we need to do is focus on the plant, on the blossom. The blossom, the beauty, like Joanne read about this morning, that's where the power of creation lies, is living from that place. Sure, we need to plant our seeds. We need to know what it is that we want. And we understand the law is automatic. The law is automatic. We don't have to do anything. We work way too hard at this. All we have to do, our job, is to know the feeling of that blossom and to be in that, to live from that place. That is what is ours to do in the creative process. That's easier, isn't it? Let's see. So the 3 steps that Holmes is telling us in this quote is think, become, and know the truth. And that sounds pretty easy, but for those of us that are in this practice and this teaching and try and walk and practice these principles on a consistent basis, know that it's not always that easy. It's not always that easy. But practicing is what we're doing, and that, again, is our theme this year for all of 2019. For 12 months, we're looking at practicing the presence. Practicing the presence in our lives so that we can actively live the teaching as a demonstration of our lives. We talk about walking the talk, talking the talk, those sort of things, but I want to see it demonstrated in our lives. I want to see it outpictured. I want to see the blossoms. Because that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's applying this teaching to our lives, making it work for us. Holmes tells us in the text that he would rather see a student of this science prove its principle than have them repeat all of the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. And we prove it by practice every day. Every day. So we're going to dig into this quote a little bit further. We've touched on that first part of it. The second part is, the first idea is about thinking. And of course, we can all do that, can't we? We can all think. That's pretty easy. But the challenge is that there's a way to think. There's a way to think. And our thinking has a tendency to wander off, doesn't it? Into anger, frustration, blame, fear, worry. It'll wander off and go over there, giving us more to fear, be angry about, afraid, blame. Because that's what happens, isn't it? What we focus on expands in our life. So thinking correctly is really about holding the high watch in our own minds, knowing the tendency of our thinking. What am I thinking about? Is what I'm thinking about right now supporting that which I am trying to bring into my life? Or is it resisting it? Is it resisting it? I have had experiences with folks who tell me they want to manifest a relationship. I really want true love this year. And then I hear them talking about how bad the opposite sex is. Certain stereotypes we might hear. All women are, all men are, fill in the blanks. So we're saying, I want this, and then we're pushing it away. Probably more firmly than we're trying to create it. That is where we run into difficulties in this teaching. But I've been praying for that. But have we gotten all of our thinking into alignment with that which we say we are seeking? If we're seeking $1 million, if money is something that's on your manifestation list, I want more money in my life, I want to be a millionaire. And if that's your goal, awesome. But if you have been consistently all of your life living at a $25,000 income and lifestyle, and you have a little resistance about rich folks, a little judgment around them, it's not coming. I'm sorry, it's not coming. Because you're in resistance to your good. You're not allowing it to come through you. We've got to get that stuff lined up, don't we? We've got to get that stuff lined up. We've heard the saying, you must first become that which you seek. Well, that sounds just crazy. Doesn't it? How can I be something I'm not? If I'm seeking it, I want it, it's not in my life. How can I? That doesn't make any sense, right? Oh, we have this beautiful faculty called our imagination, don't we? And our imagination is that thing that we use when we're worrying, when we're blaming and making up stories. Isn't that our imagination that we're using? Yeah. So why don't we use that for good? Why don't we use that for good? I'm always every time I say that, I'm always reminded of the Wizard of Oz when the witches are asking, are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? Use your power for good. We have that imaginative power to do that. If you want to enjoy a loving relationship, if you want to enjoy a successful career, if you want more money in the bank, who would you be if those things were true in your life? When you woke up in the morning, if you were going to a successful career, you were manifesting whatever it was you put on your intention card last week, when you woke up in the morning, what would your feeling be if you had that? How would you drive to the office? How would you interact with your coworkers? If you're in a loving relationship, what would you be doing? Would they be sitting next to you right now in spiritual community with you? Would you be going out to lunch afterwards or a movie? How would you feel if that were true? That is the place we have got to live from in order to have these things show up in our lives. Otherwise, they're just words. They're just words. We can imagine ourselves into that. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, I used the Neville Goddard quote where he said, imagination and faith are the secrets of creation. And it's true. Imagination. And it doesn't take that much time. Has anybody listened to, what's her name? Abraham or Esther Hicks, right? She's got that whole thing going, right? Get in the vortex, get in the vortex, get in the vortex. What's she talking about? This, right? Live from the place of your dreams. Become it. It's not crazy. Become it. At least for a little part of your day, become it. Take time to work on your dreams every day rather than complaining that they're not here yet. The final step is not by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. How many times have you said or someone said to you, I'll hold a positive thought for you? Ever heard that? It's a wonderful, compassionate, kind phrase. To think that someone's thinking of me. It's wonderful. But it's not healing, is it? It's not a healing thought, because in our teaching we know that healing comes from knowing, doesn't it? It comes from knowing the truth of someone who's hurting or someone who's in pain. It comes from knowing their wholeness as a spiritual being. So it's not about holding a positive thought. There's a mystical saying you may have heard, the truth will set you free. You may have heard that in a spiritual community, or you may have seen it around a college campus somewhere. They have a tendency to post those signs around, don't they? The truth will set you free. You ever wondered what it means? Well, it actually comes from the book of the Bible, from the book of John, chapter 8, verse 32, and was spoken by the mystic teacher Jesus. He was talking to his disciples about that, but he never really explained it. Christianity's picked that up and interpreted the truth to be Jesus, the man himself. In New Thought and Science of Mind, we say truth is awareness. Truth is awareness of our own wholeness, our own divinity, and our own oneness with God, that God is in, through, and as each of us as manifestations of it. That is the truth. And when we know it, not when we think it in our heads, not when we can talk it, but when we know it, we are free. We are free. Have you ever found yourself caught up in some negativity, some negative thoughts, some stuff? And you can't get out of it. You just stay over there, right? It's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. We're in bondage. We're all bound up in our thinking. until we choose to step out of it and free ourselves and think about something else. Think about something else. Neville Goddard tells us that the awareness of being, or consciousness, is the door through which the manifestation of life passes into the world of form. This is the truth that makes us free, for we are always self-imprisoned or self-freed. That's a powerful statement. Self-imprisoned or self-freed. We have that choice because usually it is our thinking that has us bound, that has us in that fear, that has us in blame and resistance and ego and all those places that we go, that we get stuck in, as opposed to stepping into our freedom to allow Spirit to express through us, to allow manifestations of life to pass into the world of form. Spirit is not over here building something. Spirit is working through us to do the building. But we've got to be that open channel, don't we? We've got to allow it. We've got to allow it. I think Neville is explaining what Holmes always said, that Spirit can do for us only what Spirit can do through us. And that's what we're talking about. Spirit's not going to do it to us, but through us. Through us. Freedom is something that we choose. So is bondage. So is bondage. We want to blame other people for it, but it is something that we choose if we want to stay in it. Every week, Michael Gott asks us at the end of service, do you want to be free? We all say yes. And then what's he say? I release and I let go. I let Spirit run my life. Let go and let God. Surrender to your own divinity, to your own brilliance and magnificence of the divine being of light and love and joy that you are. Allow. Practicing the presence. That's what it's about. Practicing the presence. The thing itself is not guy in the sky with the beard. It's not a superhuman father figure. It's not a personality. It's a presence. It's love. Doesn't require our worship. Doesn't care. Because there's no personality on it, right? It's a relationship. That's what I've come to. God is a relationship. An intimate relationship. The most intimate relationship. That which is always with us. That knows our thoughts. That we can know its thoughts. That we are in communion with. That we can be in that imaginative, creative process with. It's the intuition. It's the wisdom and the intelligence. It's the most intimate relationship we can ever have. And that it's a state of being of living from source. Living from source. Anybody heard of Rumi? The mystic poet Rumi? He always spoke of Spirit as the beloved. As the beloved. And when I first heard that, it really resonated with me as that relationship with the divine. He says, love rushed into my veins, emptying me of myself. Now filled with the beloved, my only possession is my name. My only possession is my name. You know, I'm approaching 20 years in this study this summer since I walked into my first Science of Mind church. Thank you, Denise. And I have come to that idea that practicing the presence is about building that relationship. It is a relationship with the beloved, the source of my being. Within me, that which sources my ideas, my abundance, my relationships, my career, daily practice. I'm guarded, guided, protected. And it's about building that relationship. And it's not a one and done. You know, everybody heard that phrase, one and done? It's not a one and done. It's a daily practice. It takes that spiritual maturity of being in a daily practice with the divine. To know ourselves, to know spirit, to pray and commune, contemplate. So living as the presence of God, giving as the presence of God, giving our love, giving our joy, our peace as the presence of God, allowing that to come through us rather than resisting the things around us. We can use our imagination, our God wisdom within us. That's what I call it. It's our creative faculty, our God wisdom, to be the best me, the best you that we can be. That's how we do it. So I want to look at some ways that we can practice the presence. And that's what we're calling our principles this year that we usually do at the end of each service, is practicing the presence. And our first one is think. Don't worry, be happy. Remember that song? Learning to manage our thoughts and our thinking is the only way to create lasting changes in our lives. It's the only way to create lasting changes in our lives. We've all been on that wheel of, okay, I fixed it, and oh no, I lost it. Oh, I've got it. Oh, it fell apart. Oh, I gained the weight. Oh, I lost it. Oh, I lost the weight. Oh, I gained it. Right? We've all been on these things. Got the money, don't have the money. Got the guy, lost the guy. Right? We've all been there. I didn't. He's just sick today. If we continue to think what we've always thought, we'll continue to get what we've always got. Now, that's been attributed to Dr. Seuss, Einstein, and Socrates. I'm not sure who said it, but it's true, isn't it? And that's the basis of science of mind. Change your thinking, change your life, watch your life change when you do take command of how you think. Pay attention to how you think. Number 2, become the living embodiment of our thoughts. Again, our teaching symbol in the creative process, seed, soil, plant. It breaks it apart so we can see how it works, but really our focus needs to be on that blossom, on the beauty of the expression of living in the future, for goodness sake. How am I going to feel when this happens? I'm going to feel empowered. I'm going to feel brave. I'm going to feel strong. I'm going to feel loving and loved and successful and joyful and peaceful. Use your own, but how are you going to feel when whatever it is that you're working on to manifest this year shows up in your life? How are you going to feel? Will it put a smile on your face? Will it put joy in your heart? Will it put money in your wallet? A car in your driveway? What are you working on this week, this month, this year? We can do that through the power of our imagination. I encourage you to play. Our parents told us as young children, stop daydreaming. Daydream. Start daydreaming. Start imagining yourself as that blossom. Spend some time there every day. The truth will set us free. And this is all about getting out of our heads and into knowingness. Getting into knowingness. Being absolutely certain and sure of that unity of the divine that we are. Living from this awareness. It's not just about, yeah, I know God is all there is, and God lives in me, and I am that which it is. That's as far as we sometimes get. We've got to get into the knowing and living from that place of knowing. If I knew that I was truly sourced from an infinite supply and source of all that I ever need, how would I be different? How would I show up? Who would I be? We need to get to that place of belief and knowing, because then that becomes the law of our lives through which Spirit manifests. It's much like fruit trees. God manifests through all of its creation. Fruit trees manifest the fruit through themselves, right? That's God manifesting through the fruit tree as the fruit. What is your fruit? What is your fruit that you're manifesting? So we begin our month and our year with these basic ideas of our teaching, beginning with the thing itself. We're going to move on and do the other 3 books over the next 3 weeks. But today I ask you, what is God? What is this thing itself? I think we each need our own definition for that. I can tell you mine, but we each need our own because it is an intimate relationship. It is personal to each of us. What is God for you? What is God for you? It's my always and ever-evolving relationship with universal love. It is the knowing that I'm constantly guided and guarded, protected, sourced, ideas, friends, financial good, joy, peace, safety. It's all of those things. It's realizing how Spirit shows up not only in my life, but in all of our lives, in the world. And as we're going back to basics, sometimes I know we go, I know all that stuff. I don't want to do that again. But Ernest Holmes, and then late in his life, very late in his life, he was speaking with one of our ministers, and they were discussing science of mind and the principles one night. And he said, yeah, you know, when you think you know it all, you don't know anything. And that's been my joy in the 20 years that I've spent in this teaching, is, as Joanne mentioned, reading this textbook. I have started reading. I read it every other year. There's a lot of things I like to read in between, but I read it every other year. We have these for sale out there. In the back of it is the reading guide. And it's a wonderful way to deepen into our teaching. Most of the readings are very brief each and every day, and it helps us to anchor in that. But every time I read it, I go, I've never read that before. Did they change this book on me? Right? But there's my notes in the margin. And I can see how I've grown and changed. This book hasn't changed since 1938. But I can assure you in the last 20 years I've changed. And as I reread it, I find the teaching deeper and deeper and more empowering in my life. So that's why we continue with our mission here, which is teach, learn, study, practice. And that's what we'll be doing this year. And so it is. So I invite you, if you would, to join me in an affirmative prayer this morning. And I would invite you as we go into prayer to bring into your awareness whatever it is that is on your heart that you're intending for this year, that you're manifesting for this year. And as you close your eyes, feel how that feels, as we said here on 12/31, and you have achieved it. You have accomplished it. You have it in your hands and in your possession in this moment. If it's peace on earth, if it's love in your life, if it's career, finance, whatever it might be, healing, health, step into that feeling and let us pray. In this moment, there's God and nothing else. That one infinite love of the universe. The power, the presence, the majesty that is God, that is creation, that is all that there is. It is the infinite harmony of all of life. It is joy and prosperity, wisdom, intelligence. It is imagination and intuition. And I know that I am sourced of that presence, that I am a manifestation of it, for I am of that same substance. There's only one substance. I am of that. And it is in, through, and as me as my life, as I allow it to flow through me, to be that expression of it, uniquely individualized as me. And as I know that for me, I know that for each one of us here this day and all within the sound of my voice, that we are all unique and individualized manifestations of that universal substance, this presence we call the divine, we call God, we call source. And knowing that divinity, our divine inheritance, our love, our joy, our harmony, that we are, it is so easy to speak my word and know the truth for each of us, the wholeness that we are. the divine health that we are, the wisdom and intelligence that resides in our bodies that knows exactly what to do in each and every moment, for our abundant wealth, prosperity in all areas of relationship, of love, of wholeness, of successful careers that are so rewarding and joy-filled. For any area, for whatever it is we're manifesting, whether it's a new business, whether it's a new relationship, whether it's improving an existing one, whether it's letting go, releasing an addiction, a habit, a situation, a circumstance, whatever it might be. As we bring that into our awareness, we sit in this moment, in the experience of it, of the blossom. And how grateful I am for this manifestation. Knowing that as we have brought this idea, this blossom in our life into our imagination, into the texture, the taste, the feel, the touch of it, that we are calling it forward in powerful ways this morning. So I accept it in this moment with great gratitude and grace, knowing that the word spoken is the word made manifest as I release this into the action of law that simply says yes, does its work automatically, unconditional, without any help from me. It is done unto each of us as we believe in this moment. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is.